So I've been going through my notes and my writings of a few years ago, and I was struggling with the concept of real estate. Now, some think that might be a corruption of saying the royal estate. Now, that makes a lot of sense because United States has always been under England, and in particular, the King of England. So all the teachings and propaganda that you received in school about an American revolution against England is completely false. In other words, the American people got the illusion that they were free of England. Now, ultimately, all of America was property of the King of England. And if you hold to that understanding, you will realize that every inch of ground here in the United States is property of the King of England. Hence, all dealings in property are called real estate. Now, if that is true, that it's sort of a corruption of royal estate, you can understand that essentially no one in America owns any property. So I just busted a bubble because so many people are so proud of what they own, their house, the land, etc. But ultimately, it is an illusion. And we'll talk a little more about that here as we proceed through my notes. But anyhow, another sort of twist on this could be if you take Israel and then just switch the A and the E for real, real estate. Now I tried real backwards and I got layer, Laer, and that's kind of they use that as an acronym for emissions, least admissions, something or other. Anyhow, that's not really going anywhere. But if we take the etymology of the word, it comes from the Latin sta or status, meaning standing or position. Estat in the medieval, or estat, estate in English. Now you can take the E off of estate, and that just leaves you with state. So real estate or real state, that which belongs to the state. Now this can be done through what's called aphesis, Aphesis, which is dropping a vowel that's not used. Dropping the vowel that's not used. So you can take estate, and if you drop the vowel, drop the E, it just simply becomes state. Estate to state. Okay? So basically what I'm trying to say is that all properties and all land are owned by the state. And anyone who purchases property or houses is given the illusion that that property belongs to the purchaser. Now, what can bust this completely is the fact that even if you have paid off your home and you do not pay the taxes on that home, the property taxes, eventually, who will come to your door and kick you out? It will be the state. With no mercy, no compassion, nothing for anyone. And so many people started to, quote, purchase a home and poured out a lot of money into trying to complete the purchase. And failure to pay taxes causes them to be expelled from the home. And then the home goes into the possession of the state. And the individual gets nothing back in terms of money that was paid out. It's cruel, and it's effective for the state. In other words, if you don't comply and pay your taxes, even if you have spent $100,000 over many, many years to pay off your home, the state will take it. You say, well, how can that be? Well, my thoughts are this: it really never belonged to the purchaser. Now, this is true also for cars, and you can check this out, because if you think you own your car and you have a title to your car, what you really have is called the certificate of title. The actual title is in a bank somewhere. And once again, it can be taken off of you. And some states issue property tax on vehicles. And I know this happened to me when I lived in Virginia. I had to pay property tax on my car. Even though I had completely paid off the car, I had to still keep paying taxes on it. Now, what would have happened if I didn't pay the taxes on the car? You guessed it. Who would come? The royal estate or the state would come and take it. So anyhow, this was on my mind, and it still is on my mind. And it's not really an encouraging message for people, because most people get very proud of themselves and they'll say, well, I finally paid off my house. And that's a good thing, yet anybody that pays off their house and doesn't pay their taxes, they're subject to having their house taken from them. And I know a while back there was a lot of videos out there about, oh, you don't have to pay taxes, and if you do this or you do that, it'll make you exempt, and so there are a few people out there that bought into all of that, and then of course the state came knocking on their door and eventually evicted them. and took the home, because ultimately the house was not really theirs ever. And the same is true of acres of land. Even though people think it's in their possession, but the true possessor of the land is the royal estate. The royal estate. And if you want to drop the royal and drop the E, just say the state. So ultimately, if you boil it down, it's pure communism. Because in communism, there's no private property. Well, anyhow, these are my thoughts on the word real estate. Now let me just say a word to perhaps counteract all the negativity of what I just said. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you don't belong to this world. In fact, the Bible tells us if you have love of this world, the love of the Father is not in you. So having faced this, my own teaching, my own video, what it means is this: your car, your house, all of it, it's just stuff of this world. And ultimately it doesn't matter, because you don't live here forever. You live forever in eternal life. And Jesus did preach, render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So if Caesar is saying, I ultimately own your house, okay, so what? If Caesar is saying, I own your car, so what? But the second half of the verse is render unto God what belongs to God. Now, do you know what that means? It means you belong to God. The body you inhabit is God's body. The soul and the spirit you have because God gave it to you. From the day of your birth, you belong to God. And even now, as you struggle in this world against inflation, against the lies and the liars, against the hoax system, you have to say, I belong to God. And as the old gospel hymn said, this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up, where? Somewhere beyond the blue. Lay not treasures on earth where moth and rust corrupt and where thieves can break in and steal, but rather lay up your treasures in heaven. If you want to look at it in another way, and you want to use the word royal estate, we belong to a royal estate. We belong as believers to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I'd like to thank you if you've watched this video, and a special thank you if you got to the end of my video. This concludes the video.